So I'm excited to kick off tonight's session of Pioneer Forum. So we are a regular event series. We are really a non-profit organization, and we try to bring together all the leaders from industries to have a real thoughtful, meaningful conversations regarding innovations, technologies, and where things are headed. I'm Jeffrey Wu. I'm the founder of this event series, and also I'm the founder of the Merity. We are a IT consulting firm. We help the enterprise to solve their use cases, especially in the AI ML space. So tonight's topic, convergent futures. We're focusing on how to build, scale, and funding the AI native companies in 2026. And so AI is no longer a standalone categories. It's a converging with fintech, legal, enterprise, and SaaS. The global markets to redefine how companies are built and scaled. As capital becomes more selective and AI capabilities becomes increasingly commoditized, and founders must rethink where the real value are created. And so these tonight's events will bring together the leading entrepreneurs, product executives, and AI builders to explore how the next generation of AI native companies will be built or scale or founded. So let's welcome to our panelists.
All right, I think I'm going to start from me. So my name is Jie Chen. This is the sixth time for me to come to this event and the first time for me to being the coordinator. I was busy from work today, so I don't prepare much about me, introduction about me, so I'm just tell a little bit about me. I work in Goldman Sachs as a software engineer. I've been working in this industry for about 10 years, and prior to Goldman Sachs, I was in some other small companies that get into Goldman. And then 3 years ago, I started, I think I was one of the first guys, or the first group of people who explored to use AI to build up my own business, but it failed. So that's why also another reason I'm here today is to learn how you guys succeed. Okay, that's one thing. And but oftentimes I was, there was always a question that hung on me. So I was thinking, am I falling behind in AI? Because I think I'm not knowing too much about AI, even though I've been doing something about AI 3 years ago. I called it AI, but we failed to do it. And I was like, what is the latest? What's the latest trend of AI? It already hurt me much, but I feel like I cannot catch up with AI, the latest speed. And then so I don't know how many of you guys have the same kind of feeling like me. You're falling behind the trend of AI, and you don't know the latest. What's the latest now? What's the latest trend? How many of you?
I'm a little panelist.
Wait.
And
Well, you guys are you serious?
it's overwhelming.
Okay, it's overwhelming. Okay, that's why.
Every day is something new. Yeah.
That's why I started to realize that.
Yeah.
But every day by day, I still feel like that's the thing. Because that's been hanging around me. My friends, last year about the same time, it's around Chinese New Year, I met one of my friends in the Chinese gathering, in the party. I met my friends who were just divorced, man. It was pretty sad. And so he was like, hey, Jay, I want to build up something, The market for us is not very friendly. And it's hard for me to match some girls who are, they don't have experience for marriage. So they're sad about me. So I'm gonna, I want to build up a new application that only for divorced people. I said, whoa, fantastic idea. That's a good plan, man. What are you gonna do about that? Is there anything I can help you? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? I'm a 10 years old software engineer. I believe there's something I can help you, right? And I was like, oh, don't worry about that. I already released my first version to the AWS. He explained this idea 3 days before the party, and the day I'm checking with him, he has already released the first version of that. I said, how do you make it to build up your application so fast? Because to me, it will probably take me 2-3 months to finish even that single easy feature and within my work, right? It takes a lot of steps, a lot of pipelines. I said, how do you do that? It's like, okay, I built my software with Cursor AI, helped me do the coding part, and it was harnessed to do the deployment. So everything was resolved within about 3 days. I was like, oh, shocked me. Okay, I'm falling behind. Now this year, so that literally last weekend, I was pulled over in Fort Lee. It's a sad story. I was not driving too fast. I was driving crazy. I was pulled over by policemen. And I stopped, have a chat with them. So like I was like, how do you guys using the air right now? They don't stop. Like, what are you talking about? So otherwise, how can you catch up with me? I'm not speeding. I'm not doing anything. How do you analyze potentially anything that you can stop me? No. All right, that was because my driver's license was overdue. But that's not the point. So later, after half an hour, I called for a Lyft. So Lyft picked me up from Fort Lee all the way to Jersey City. It's a long drive. Enough for me to have like a quick conversation with the lady. The driver is a lady who has a retarded nurse. She had been doing this for 30 years. Been doing a registered nurse, and then started being an Uber driver for about 5-6 years after I retired. So, and she was asking me, young man, what do you do for life? I was like, I'm a software engineer. So, and she was like, okay, what do you think about AI? I was like, I'm a 10-year experienced engineer. What do you mean by what do you know about AI? I was like, oh lady, what do you know about AI? And we just taught each other for this long way, talk about all the moral things, all the outcomes, what's the newest trends. I was shocked by her knowledge about AI. Before I getting off my right, and then she's like, okay, can you recommend me some AI agents that I want to explore? I say, okay. In my work, I use ChatGPT, I use Gemini. They're fantastic. And she told me, okay, have you ever used Cloud? I really like the way it rolls everything out like a gentleman. I was like, okay, now I'm falling behind. I'm pretty sure. All right, that's about my story. So without further ado, let's dive into the first section about our event. So let's start from the Mr. Teddy. Will give us the introduction about yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Teddy Wu. Currently, I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called InTime AI. So at the AI, our mission to transforming the access of justice for every plaintiffs. So what we do today, we build an all-in-one generative AI platform to automate the whole workflow for plaintiff lawyers. So such as like personal injury, medical and nursing home lawyers, which is essentially represent every ordinary people who have been got injured. Maybe a little bit more, right? So I'm doing AI before the journey. I'm doing AI for more than 10 years. I'm an AI scientist. So I got my PhD from College of William Mary in computer science, and later I joined IBM T.J. Watson as an AI scientist. I stayed at IBM about 6 years. Very happy time. I don't know if anyone been IBM T.J. Watson before in Utah Heights. Yeah, it's a giant building that have about more than 2,000 researchers there. Yeah, so like one thing I feel have a lot of luxury there. So it's very easy to meet the people who have been winning Nobel Prize and touring the world and just sitting beside you, and you can talk and have a breakfast together. So I feel that is really a luxury for me to really start my career, able to working with a lot of very smart people. Yeah, so later I joined. I left IBM after six very fruitful 6 years. Before I left IBM, I already holding a 65 US patent in AI, and I'm one of the youngest master inventor in IBM history. I also published a book that's called Graph Neurons in Foundation Frontier Applications. The book is published by Springer. So today is sold 300,000 copies worldwide. It's one textbook in university in US. So later I feel like I want to do something more than just invent, publish paper and have patent. So I think my inner calling is really to want to build a company in the future. But one thing I know very clear that it's not that easy for a scientist to directly build a product. So that's really driven me to decide to join JD.com. So one of the biggest e-commerce platform. As a principal scientist, so I'm leading about 100 people of the department for Andy for that moment to launch a lot of kind of like the 0 to 1 project. So 4 or 5 years ago, we already building a larger model for e-commerce at that moment. I already developed something very similar to ChatGPT today, but all for shopping. So later I left J.com and joined Pinterest as one of the engineering leader responsible for the content understanding. How many people use Pinterest app? Okay, so if you ever click anything and you see that, so it has been recommended more and more thing you like. So the signal behind that is belong to my team. Okay, so yeah, so when I saw ChatGPT at the moment, I realized 2 things. One is, wow, this is going to change the whole world. Okay, the second thing really is because my previous in J.com, we built a very similar product, but not as smart as ChatGPT at the moment. And we realized that it's because our model is not big enough. So the 2 fundamental technical challenges are this multi-round conversation, as well as to accurately understand the human intention when you ask questions. That is a key. So I saw the moment, I saw my team from Meta AI, from Microsoft AI, and later, we are starting Anytime AI. So yeah, that's my journey.
How about you, Lena?
I'm Elena Obukova, founder of Supermoon and Supermoon Ventures. My background actually starts in 2014 when I discovered Bitcoin first. And that's how I began in fintech and digital assets. I've been advising companies on how to expand to Asian markets, spent years in venture capital, also designing new ways to price digital assets, because at that time no one really knew. Still, a lot of people have no idea how to do that. So I was working with a lot of VC funds, with companies on figuring out ways to design new exotic financial instruments. Also joined United Nations, was advising them on how to integrate emerging tech for financial inclusion. That led me to actually create my own company, because I noticed that nothing was getting done at United Nations. It was more for bureaucracy. It was a lot of bold ideas and discussions. However, I noticed that there was no real actions that were being done at United Nations. But I was really glad because I met one of the brilliant data scientists who joined me on the journey at the consulting company. So we were actually working and utilizing a lot of our ML tech at that time to do stress testing. It was a wild west in the crypto market. So it was really interesting learning experience. I wish we had our AI technologies at that time. It would have made our work way easier. A lot of things that we were spending probably like a week or 2 weeks designing before even starting to test. Now I can probably do it like within an hour, just using any generic AI models. So after starting consulting company, we expanded. We were working with a lot of neobanks as well. Also grew our team to over 50 consultants across the world. That also made me move a lot. I spent quite some time in Asia, between China, Korea, and Thailand. Built my company, consulting company, out of Hong Kong. Then end up moving briefly to Europe and Latin America to explore the markets there. And end up in New York City, where we already had our good established network. And essentially, it's been already 5 years I've been here. Consulting company led me to also creating Supermoon together with my co-founder Chris, who's right there in the audience. We actually started it as a complete passion project. We never expected that it's going to take a wild turn and turn into business. We just wanted to gather founders, builders, investors from our network and give them in-person experience where they can connect and build trust. After that, we started getting so many requests, so we started hosting a lot of events, and long story short, right now we have over 42,000 founders, builders, investors. Majority of our network is focused on the United States and particularly New York City. we've hosted over 160 events, from smaller curated dinners to larger networking events for like 800, 1,000 people. Also startup days. We launched our rolling fund last year to invest in startups. And this year, actually this week, we just announced the launch of New York City Accelerator that is focused on deep tech, AI, robotics, and digital assets.
Thank you, Kathy. And how about you, Swati?
So I have been in this space, AI ML space, for about 15 years now. I started off in research as a psychology researcher, and then slowly progressed into machine learning and then deep learning and now Gen AI. I'm currently working for Wolters Kluwer. It's a healthcare company, so my role here is to enable all of their products with AI features. So I'm the AI enablement director there, and we have 4 different divisions that we focus on. One is clinical decision support system, where we build tools for doctors to help them diagnose patients, AI-powered tools. We also have a health research section, which is more around journal articles, books, publications that focus on academicians and librarians. We also have a health language technology division, which is more focused on pharmacy, mapping complex drugs, understanding relationship amongst drugs, and then finally education, so nursing education. We build AI tools to help nurses continue their education, get credits for stuff like that. So this is I've been in this firm for about 2 months now, so this is very new for me, this space. But previously, I have been in Verizon, so I was the AI director there to help jumpstart their voice AI strategy using voice agents. Before that, I was with JP Morgan. I was the head of applied AI for controls and compliance, where my role was to build automation tools using AI to automate all of the compliance operations. Some very interesting projects we worked on over there, including trader surveillance, which is more to understand how traders can manipulate prices. So we built tools to monitor them, monitor their chats, stuff like that. So that was very interesting. Before that, I was with Dun & Bradstreet, which is more of a data services firm, which is, I spent a lot of time doing very hands-on work there. This was way back in, I think, 2014 or so, doing more of graph-based techniques, network analysis for supply chain analytics, stuff like that. So it's been a long journey, and I'm excited to know what's coming in the future, because every day there's so much new stuff that you have to learn, keep up to date. So yeah, it's an exciting space to be at this time.
All right, here it is. New things that I learned from you is that you who trained that rich nurse to use AI? Otherwise, how does she know that much? Just kidding. All right, Sarah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm Sarah Perkins, and I lead Product Place Labs. It's a boutique consultancy where I'm a fractional chief product officer. I work with startups, large or scale organizations in product and product marketing, as well as their go-to-market. But I've been building machine learning and AI products for well over 11 years. Prior to this, I led product and product marketing in the digital transformation at National Grid, a multinational utility, and I was a chief product officer at Gusto, which, if any of you all small businesses need to pay folks, I was there. But I really cut my teeth, as I would like to say, as a one of my favorite places I've ever worked was Oracle, and I actually helped build one of the first chatbots within their enterprise system, and it was actually a product that they wanted to kill. And back in the day, building that product, it was kind of old-fashioned. We didn't have a big, large model. we had to figure out how people would say yeah, yay, yes, and as well as deal with a lot of wrong spellings to figure out how someone could figure out how to ask for maternity leave or FMLA if people didn't know how to do it. So it was a lot of working with machine learning teams. But after spending almost half a decade at Oracle, I moved to Ernst & Young, where I helped build a lot of their engines and a lot of their platforms to get them ready for AI, and to be able to audit things better and build a lot of those tools. But that's kind of where I've been in that journey currently. I work with the City of New York as one of their advisors and working with women in small businesses and helping coach those women in small businesses as a passion project on AI and how to build models, if they want to build that, or build agents. And I'm not going to talk too long because I know we're going to jump right in. But
All right.
yeah, that's me.
Okay. Sure. All right. Thanks for industrial leaders from all the aspects well represented. So next, a few questions for all of you guys. You guys can feel free to answer from your perspective. So, right, the first one is, as we're building companies where the core product is intelligent, or sometimes it's autonomous, right? So what happens is the classic startup mantras of like solving a human problem, and what do we ensure? How do we ensure it's building companies for people, not just for showcase some engineering marvels using AI?
I can take it.
Oh, sure.
I think it's really important that we stay a human in the loop. I think we have current schools of thought where we have folks that are very antisocial, that love technology and want humans outside of it, in a world where it's just technology, right? When we, as a product person, I'm always having empathy for the human, for the customer. Know your customer, know your business. And if you're building technology for technology's sake, that gets very expensive, right? There's only going to be so many tokens. There's going to be so much infrastructure. And then you also have to think about monetizing and how you're going to sell something, right? If you build it and you're in a startup, right? You have small resources. It's very short, it's very scrappy. So if you don't get to figuring out what that problem is, you don't have a long runway. I think the challenge we're going to have is in larger organizations, and where we're seeing now that a lot of AI projects are failing, they really haven't done the critical thinking of what problem are we solving? Do we need to reverse engineer it? Do we need to figure out what our customers want? Do we need to figure out if we need to have better processes versus building out this agent? So that's my perspective of keeping that human in the loop and solving that problem. It's very much going to be determined by like your resources, as well as like your critical thinking capacity. And once you kind of see those tokens and those infrastructure bills go up, that I think is going to be a gate and a barrier for people to just keep building shiny new toys, because organizations are not as receptive to being not having productivity. So if things are not going to give them that unexceptional ROI, I think they're going to kill those projects. It's got to be, we're going to solve these specific problems and these KPIs.
I completely agree. So I think the key point is to focus on solving the end goal versus focusing on the technique. A lot of times we get so bogged up in using, shiny models, complex solutions. Most times a simpler solution is the best solution, because when you put it in production, you want to be sure that it works as expected. So the more complexity you introduce, the more problems you have. So simplicity is the best way to go about it. So key focus should be on, are you solving the end goal? How are you making things streamlined? Not on what is the latest model or latest technology you're using. I know a lot of people who want to use graphs for everything. You really don't. Like, sometimes you just have to simplify your thought process and see how you can solve the problem versus, trying to use something really complex to solve a given problem at hand.
I agree with both. I think it's actually, we're right now at the stage when people are experimenting, testing different ideas. They're realizing that there is a big market and hype, and VCs are asking about AI. We're also reaching a point where, like, what is AI as an industry? How much of AI you need to have to become an AI company? So we're stepping into a role where AI is going to be integrating in the different industries, and that's what founders need to think about is what is their end market. Infrastructure, yes, of course, we'll always need it, but how much of infrastructure we need really are to reach our to end customers. And sometimes the best technology is not always like the most advanced technology is not always the best technology for your company, just because it might be pricier, it might be slower, it might just not serve an end purpose. So founders need to think from a perspective of a go-to-market strategy instead of just chasing trends and try to figure out like how we're gonna just slap a AI label on our project. It's not working like that, and that's why we see right now a big, obviously, hype happening in the market, and we will be reaching a point of consolidation. There will be definitely a lot of readjustments from big tech companies. There will be, we already saw what happened with the new Anthropic update that just happened, I believe it was yesterday.
Yeah.
4.6.
Yeah, so we're gonna see more of such stories. We'll also see.
Just update it.
Okay, yeah, so we're gonna see daily happening new information. We're also gonna see our bigger companies, corporates are trying to integrate AI tools. There is definitely opportunities for founders to figure that out. We're also gonna see a lot of madness happening from all these vibe coding applications. We're gonna see a lot of risks and challenges on the cybersecurity front, which also opens amazing opportunities for founders that are trying to figure out like what's gonna be happening. So instead of trying to like chase those trends, I always recommend founders to think like, what is that problem you're trying to solve? Just forget about technology. We're not talking about our technology when like majority of us, like if we go to, let's say, shop for a car, a lot of people don't really understand the engine. We would be looking at how it feels, like is it comfortable or not. And a lot of consumer-facing apps are kind of using the same logic, whether you wanna use it, if it's comfortable, if it serves a problem or not. Infrastructure is great, but we're not always need an endless amount of infrastructure. So go-to-market right now is gonna be a key for every project.
So, based on my previous 2 years, right, regarding the technology, and so fundamentally, right, so what we try to solve is a problem. So that's the core, right? So that's very, very important. So, yes, regardless of what technology we can use to solve that, you can always have a lot of choice. But the other thing I want to remind everyone that so, because today's AI model have been basically evolving so quickly, and the capacity is evolving so quickly, you have to keep up on the latest model. Why? Because you have to pay attention to what the latest model can do for you. That maybe even overthrow the previous technology stack you have been building in the past half year. And this is true for every time when you have a new model come out. So one big lesson we have learned so in the past 2 years is like, at the very beginning, we try to build some tech stack that, because we're all scientists, right, from IBM, from Meta AI, we believe some of the things that is very, very advanced. But later we realized that, when we look at the competitor product, something seems like they solve very well. And when we look at that game, seems like just from the foundation model itself. So that really, give us a lot of lessons there. So you have to pay attention to that, right? So whenever they have a new model come out, you need to have a team to test that, to see how much breakthrough there that are able to help us to refine our current tech stack to solve the problem better, right? The motivation is to solve the client problem better. But if you don't keep out on the technology advancement, you may lose the opportunity to see that and to build the best product for your client.
But would that be any like back and forth between different options? Let's say, just like you said, sometimes you've been spending hours than the one option that they may have to come back to the second option because that has better performance. Well, how do you leverage that kind of trade-off?
You basically have to maintain, a set of the testing documents and the data set. Okay, whenever that we have the new model come out, right, you need to spend like half a day, 1 day for an engineer. You need to test that group of things to see what it looks like. Sometimes if you look at the whole evolving history of this learning model, right? So back to like ChatGPT moment, like the November 2022, right? It's starting to, you can ask any question, you can understand it very well. To let the model become bigger and bigger, and then towards to this sort of chain, right? Have a much better reasoning capability. To today, it can understand the multimodality data very well, right? Previously, like every big data model, they cannot, you cannot even to read the image. Right, you have to do OCR for every document you have that is image, and then use the language model to read that. Today, you will find that, okay, some model you can directly read the image, as that result even better than original one. So you have to constantly reinvent your tech stack so that you keep up on the top of that. You can deliver the best product experience for a client. I think that part is very important.
Okay. So let's go to a little bit strategic level, right? So those are very technical detail things where we've been covered, but there's one of the other question I think is a good one is that we all know like for the past few years we've been in an era of like experimenting or prototyping AI. Right now I think I get a fast mode that we are now heading into. I don't know if you guys agree or not. We're into the scaling, and we're talking about a business model, and we're trying to make it real for real money, right? So what do you guys think it is the biggest mindset shift that make you leading this like in this transition successful?
Agentic systems that do things end to end. I think the shift should be, at least for industries like finance and healthcare. When it comes to building agentic systems, you want to have options where you can have a human override the decision of an AI, right? So let's say you have a legal firm that's trying to automate their contract review process, right? If you're building an agentic system end to end, one way to do it, a startup would typically go that way, is to analyze the contracts, give an end decision, and that's it. But that's not how things work. When you're trying to sell to a law firm, they want to be involved in every single process and in part of the process. So first step would be once they upload the documents, the AI flags, say, 25 or so issues. Then a paralegal comes in, takes a look at all those 25 issues, and then says, okay, maybe these 5 should go to an attorney for him to sort of take a look. And then the attorney comes in and says, okay, maybe out of these 5, these 2 need a bit of work, right? So there's always a human in the loop at every stage. And when you're building agentic systems, it's not just about giving an answer at the end. It's more about in the workflow, how do you allocate enough space for a human to make that decision. So you could do things like maybe send them an email saying, hey, can you check this out? The agent can do that for you. And if they don't do it, you can remind them to do it. So that way you can build a different sort of an agentic framework, but you can't have the AI do the whole end-to-end process in itself.
But that's going to be some people's goal, right? They don't want it,
industries.
right? It depends on your size, your depth, your resources, and some people want to completely automate everything. You can look at Maltbook, right? These people have had
that's
agents,
different.
right? They have these agents. I think it's going to be regulation. You're going to see regulation that's going to change that mindset of a lot of folks when it comes to building.
And in the regulated industries, right, they won't let you
Correct.
do that. Like,
But
they
the
just
regulators
won't.
need to also catch up, right? And so I think there's a huge opportunity
Yeah.
for someone to be able to go to governments and teach. But I think there's going to be some challenges of like what everyone's end goal is. For low-level tasks, right? Those that are simple, completely automate.
Absolutely.
Higher level, where there's a higher level of risk
Yeah.
and dollar amount to that, then I think the agents with lots of guardrails.
Yeah. I think industries like marketing, for instance, you don't really any guardrails. You could just go crazy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it depends. Because if an agent posts something on Twitter and it goes live,
Well, that's
and it can create an actual
PR drama.
disaster. Yeah, exactly. Because hiring people is expensive.
Yeah.
They're trying to optimize the costs. So there is no way they're gonna just sit and try to add human in the loop. They will try to
Yeah.
find like every opportunity to actually automate it through AI agents. And we're really, as you mentioned, it's happening with Moldbot. People been testing. We've been testing it, and it's pretty amazing and it's impressive. And it's honestly it's the first step towards agentic frameworks. And I can't even imagine what's going to be happening in a year. So we'll definitely see more startup founders start delegating processes to AI agents, and then other industries will have to catch up. That's how it always been. We had our outdated banking system, so we had our new technologies coming in. We had fintech, and then banks have to either acquire or adjust or figure
And
their
they will
things out.
acquire, right? Because
They
to
will,
build,
yeah.
but then
It's
you
way
have
harder.
you have the challenge of the legacy tech,
Yeah.
right? And that's going to be the opportunity is being able to figure out how can you automate a legacy tech stack? How can you rebuild it? How can you optimize it? Because a lot of these things are on the prem, right? You know, how are you dealing with those infrastructure and those technical debts where the startup can move extremely fast? And they don't have those legacy systems or complex data models yet, or securities.
Yeah, and that's how we've seen like not all legacy companies survive after that. Because if they're not able to adapt, if they're not able to acquire a right player, there's always opportunity for one of those startups to become the next legacy player.
Or it might be their advantage to not adopt. They might want to have a brick and mortar and a system that's not going to be as penetrable to the issues that are, right? So those are the two different things that you might see of having legacy. It's just like when people don't want to upgrade their ERP system. They're finding, oh, there's challenges with this. Actually, we don't want to go to SAP HANA. We want to be on the legacy system. So I think there will be, for some industries, you will see, they will be the last to adopt. And it might actually be to their advantage. Like you don't want your utility and the grid open to everyone that's on AI. Them having really broken infrastructure is actually kind of advantage to our safety. And it is broken.
Depends how broken it is.
Oh, it's broken. It's so broken, it's very sad.
So from my observation, right? So generally speaking, it's actually very interesting question. I think that's across a different domain. It doesn't matter. It's which industry. So generally speaking, I think we can classify it into three different categories. Right. The first category really we call it co-pilot, right? Is that we all understand that this is more like an assistant, right? Help us do something, prepare for the first draft, so you are able to save like 70-80% time, and then human on top of that, right, to refine that. So this is probably the most acceptable mode today, right? People feel this is more comfortable to work with AI. The second one, I would say, is more like a second brain, in the sense that so it's already pretty good, like able to do something that even you feel, wow, I wish that I have some cool colleague that able to produce that for me, so that I can working with them and then produce the better result. So the final one is really the autopilot. So when is autopilot going to happen, or in which scenario? So I would say it's more like a very standard and repetitive work that really you don't have to. In other words, it's boring for human to do that. Okay, let's let AI to do that. That definitely is able to do that. But generally speaking, right? So when how to have a human in that loop, I think most important part is about AI cannot take any responsibility of a result. If you have a work that need to take consequences of that decision, you have to deliver to the human. So that's the part that the human part cannot omit. So that's to me that's probably the most important part. So some of them is need to involve human. But if have anyone heard about like OpenClaw or Clawbot? Okay, that is completely automatic AI agent, right? No human involved at all. And how many right now in the internet? At least 1 million now. this AI agent. Okay, so in some of the community that this AI agent is, in the sense that so it's kind of crazy. They will validate, are you a human? If you are human, you are not allowed to join that conversation. It's already in this situation now. Okay, personally, I'm do have a cautious about that. I feel this is kind of like we need a strong regulation on that part. Yeah, that part is like it's more than my expectation.
Yeah.
Even though I'm an AI scientist, okay. So, but this is the direction right now we're evolving now.
And when you're trying to sell to an enterprise, like, I don't think the problem is whether you can do it technically or not. When you're trying to sell to an enterprise that's regulated, the first thing they'll ask you is, what do I do if I get sued? Right? That's the number one thing that they're concerned about their risk. So for those reasons, you need to have a human in the loop. You need to have explainable solutions. Some areas you really don't care, like when you want more sort of creativity and generative stuff, you want to take full advantage of the agentic systems. But in some instances, when you have humans at stake at the end, output, then you definitely have to take care.
Okay, wonderful.
Because you can't put the AI on trial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need someone to take responsibility of the results.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's going to be somebody that they, pan it on.
What if the AI just want to trap you?
Well, I think also a lot of people have to realize, like with Claude Notebook, a lot of the AI takes on the personalities of the humans. And as my grandmother used to say, we know a lot of people are a couple fries short of a happy meal, right? And so everyone doesn't have good intentions. And there are some people that do have antisocial behavior, right? And those agents can take on those personalities.
Thanks for your answers. That actually concludes the first section where the general questions stuff. But I hear a lot of words like regulation that being rephrased by all of you guys. Actually, a little bit surprised because then AI is becoming into the fast mode. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the one, but what you guys put the most hurt words for me was the regulation. I know it's a regulation is necessary. So the next question coming to the individual question set is for Teddy. I know you had a pretty strong experience in this area, and I know you had you're one of the leaders. So I want to hear from you. Right? Do you think it's safe? Right now, AI is being more supported. Well, is it safe to let him play in a decision-making role in the coming futures?
Well, as I said, right, so I think it's like different levels, right? So, for example, I can use, our client example, right? So, we developed this agentic AI for plaintiff law firm, right? So, law firms are client, and attorney and paralegal is our user, right? So, paralegal have to do a lot of tedious work, right? For example, to create read a medical record, 1,000 pages, 10,000 pages, create a medical knowledge. Very, very boring work, but that's very, very time consuming, right? So at the beginning of the day, we can do 70%, ready. Now I can tell you almost 99% ready. It's that good now. Okay, so if paralegal don't have to involve that portion, it's okay. My opinion is okay because that's an internal document. It's even not go outside. It's for lawyer to review the medical record quickly for the summary of the result, right? Yes. Then in that part, I say let's add to that, right? Why women to spend time on this kind of boring work, right? On the other hand, if you have to write a motion or motion reply, right? That goes to court, right? You need to make sure that so the facts you use is real facts about case. You need to make sure that so the case law citation that you're using there is a real case law, right? I think that so anything that you need to take the consequences of the result.
Yeah.
You don't have a human in the loop. But if you ask is AI safe, that really depends on the scenario now.
Okay.
Yeah, based on so.
But are we moving towards the direction where we let AI make the decision?
It's really, just as I said, it's really depends on the scenario. But I do believe in the future, this society will have a lot of work. It's just done by AI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that portion of the work, you don't have to take any kind of decision consequence on that. Right? For example, the technology I mentioned that. That's a task for human to do that if you don't have AI. But now AI can do it themselves. You don't really have to involve human. But some other thing you have to involve human.
For Elena, I know you had many experiences across all different industries, even different part of the world, right? So I know you also have been doing VC for quite a while. So as the investor, right? Well, I know a lot of investors are scrutinizing AI companies because of the models or performance or user growth. So as of now, what do you think are the one or two the obvious proof points the founders can demonstrate their capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. I touched on it a little bit earlier, is that it is really important to show your go-to-market strategy. Whereas at the end of the day, right now, I remember when I built a tech company, it took us months to develop a prototype. And we had a very strong go-to-market team. We were able to secure a lot of clients, but tech wasn't there to catch up fast enough. And it was an issue for a lot of companies at the very, very beginning. You were testing, you were trying to ship it to market as soon as possible to start generate those type of deals, early revenue, anything that can prove that you're on the right track. And as an investor right now, when I tested first, when Lovable just dropped their vibe coding tools, I was absolutely mind blown. I understood that that's going to change everything, because now when I look at the project, I don't really care if they're consumer focused. I'm not talking about like a deep infrastructure or hardware, but if it's a consumer focused app, I don't really care about the product anymore. It can be developed within a day. And obviously now, like, it's not as perfect yet, but again, like in a few months, in a year, we're going to be progressing so much that it will be possible to do and create any types of apps within like hours, minutes, or days, or depending on complexity. So how can I make a decision? We always discuss that obviously team is a main factor for any early stage investors. We want to see a strong team. We want to see that they're capable to execute. And before, obviously, we would see if they're able to deliver on the technical side. Now it's less important for consumer-facing apps. We want to see actual progress. We want to see early revenue, and we want to see it way earlier than before, because you would look at maybe 2 or 3 months after launch. No, we want to see it at the pre-seed seed stage. We want to see projects with a stronger go-to-market teams rather than strong technical teams. And I think that trend will be evolving. I think founders need to take into consideration their network. And that also brings to a point when we were discussing how many things AI can replace. And one thing that AI is not going to replace is in-person events and interactions, because that's how you develop trust, that's how you establish a lot of business relationships, and that's what majority of early stage founders should really care about right now, is building the right networks in order to execute on their vision. Whereas investors not going to care that much on how fancy your app looks like, because it's becoming irrelevant. They will care about how much revenue have you generated, and are you able to scale it 10x, 100x, and build an actual scalable company.
All right, wonderful. I don't know if you guys catch up or not, but she just mentioned out. There's something that, very importantly, something that will not be replaced by AI. I'm not sure if you guys have captured that, but keep that in secret. Okay. So, Swapi, I know you have many years of experience with with doing the regulation in the enterprise level environments. So, what do founders consistently underestimate about the deploying AI at scale? Currently, in your
Many things.
Okay.
Many things, I would say. The first thing is explainability. You know, just as there's technical debt, there's explainability debt.
Mhm.
So when you're building models and you've built a very shiny, very accurate model, and you're at the stage where you're selling to an enterprise, and the enterprise asks you, can you explain this result? Right? if at that stage you're not able to give the top predictors or explain the answer to your enterprise, you essentially have to start from zero to go back and redo the whole thing. So when you're building models, have explainability built in as part of your development framework. That's number one. Try to see compliance and regulations as a strategic moat rather than, a tax that you're paying. So have that built in right from the beginning. If you can answer questions like where does your training data come from? If a customer wants to delete their data, are you able to do that? What is your data residency policy? Where does your data sit? If a customer is in the UK, where does his data sit? If you're able to answer all of these questions, it's easier for the risk officer to then check off these boxes and then, close your deal, right? Like if there are two companies where, one company is ready with a very strong compliance framework, the other one isn't, but this company's model performance is slightly worse off than this one, they would prefer the one that has a worse off model but a better, stronger, more robust compliance framework. So if you're trying to close a deal, have all of these pieces in place right from the beginning to avoid surprises in the end.
Cool, wonderful. Okay, so Sarah, I know you've been delivered so many successful products as you mentioned, right? So, so from products, this perspective, what typically breaks? So when AI products move from the very impressive demo into the real life products.
What breaks? There's a lot of things that break. I would like, let me think. I think it's the compatibility with their own legacy systems. A lot of times when you're selling into enterprise, your product does not really mesh into it fails at that. It fails with meshing into their system. It works really well in a black box. It works really well standalone. But you have to realize that a lot of organizations don't have perfect data. They don't have really great data teams. Data lakes are all over the place. So things are not modeled that way. I think another thing that breaks is people want the 100x, the 10x, the 1000x, and that's saying you can replace 1,000 people, right? That's a really big. That's sometimes a whole company, right? That's a huge organization. I think a lot of people need to be very honest of what their product can do. I've seen very few products that can replace 1,000 people. You can lay them off, and we know that companies are hurting, but very few products can come in and just replace completely 1,000 people in an organization. I think you need to have really clear use cases and really speak the language of whether it's a financial product to the CFO, right? How much cost savings am I gonna get? A lot of people, things break when they're really not clear on that return on their investment, and they're very much over-promising and under-delivering, right? What is the critical thing that you plan to solve besides saying that I can replace 1,000x people or 100 people, 10 people? That's huge, right? If you're able to replace 10 people and that's a scrum team, right? That's $1 million, right? That's a huge saving for a lot of organizations, right? I can replace this. Another thing that I think that typically breaks as a product person is it doesn't have really good traction or fit. And that's a hard thing to say, is that a lot of times you don't have enough market data, you don't have enough customers with AI, you have a lot of synthetic data, and you really are not out there testing it enough. So when you're going and maybe you catch a whale or you catch a user, there's just not enough data for you to iterate on it. And sometimes people are very impatient because they just want to launch and there's not enough. One thing I will say finally, that's not necessarily about a full product. I think I'm going to talk a little bit about the vibe coding. I know people love vibe coding. They think vibe coding is the best thing since sliced bread. It's going to replace product. It's going to replace engineering. I think that it's going to come a long way, but a lot of times we have to think about accessibility. Vibe coding doesn't pass a lot of accessibility standards when you're selling into the enterprise. Role-based role-based access. It's a happy path for users. I think a lot of the mini apps are going to come because getting into the App Store, we all know that it's really hard to get into the App Store. I think a lot of people are going to be creating micro apps to solve a lot of their problems. But when you're selling into the enterprise, vibe coding is not going to cut it. It's a really great conversation tool. It's a really great way. It's also very expensive because it doesn't really have a great database, and it can spin up a lot of things and take a lot of tokens. But I think from a product perspective, it's going to be critical thinking. It's going to be really, truly understanding who are you building for? Are you solving that problem? Can you give them really good KPIs? Whether it's an ROI calculator, where in that pain point are you going to be able to say that executive can sleep at night because they know this tool has really cut costs or has created exceptional productivity, and really being honest about it, because promising 1,000x is really hard, knowing that very few products are replacing 1,000 people at a time. Can you make them 1,000 times more productive? Great, and solve those things. But a lot of these products, they have their limits. And I think when you're selling, you need to know what those limits are, because now word of mouth and is going to be even bigger because a lot of organizations are buying things and it's not working out for them. So I think really being able to stand by what you promise is going to be huge.
So it sounds to me like you need to hire a better salesperson in the AI space, right?
Well, I think, yeah, but I think it's not even sell. It's really your messaging, right? It's what you build and how you message it, right? You can't promise people things that they're not going to deliver. And also, it's the pricing. When you are working with like a Walmart, or you're working with somebody that's enterprise, be very honest with them. Be able to say that we know there's going to be pain points. We're going to grow. We're going to sell to you like an enterprise. And we know that you're going to be an early adopter, and set that stage. We're on a journey. Our goal is to get to 1,000x, right? Maybe we're at 50 people. And really be honest with a lot of these organizations if they're going to take your product on, and really get a champion community around a lot of these AI products so people can love it. I mean, look at Slack, look at Canva, look at Figma. A lot of these were bottom up. They were not perfect products, but they were very honest about what they can do, and then they were able to scale because the word of mouth and the way they were able to collaborate consistently. And when you're building AI products, whether it's in product design, whether it's for infrastructure, you just need to really be clear and then have really strong security settings. That's going to be the future of a lot of AI products, is they fail a lot on the security.
Nice. So my next plan is to invite all of the audience to ask questions. But right before that, I have a personal question. Just that's also been one question that has been haunting me for a while. Is that we all know, like just like I said, just like what you mentioned, there are probably some products that came in that will liberate 1,000 people and make them lose their jobs. So, what do you think? How do we get into this? How do we get along with that? How do we, whether you stay on top of the technology or whether you think that it's a problem for the society, it's a problem for the government. It's a bit open-ended. I don't know. I even till now I don't know the best answer to it, but I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? What we need to do to make people feel more secure about they will be not being replaced by the AI?
Get on top of it. Start learning it, and start using it in your everyday life, whether it's to draft emails or writing shopping lists of planning a day for you, planning a holiday for you. Start using it, see how you can use it in your work, and then you'll get ideas on how you can, if you lose your job, you can build something on your own. You just need a single person to build up an end-to-end product. So It's all about being open and creative and being in the right place at the right time to find the right opportunity. You just have to be equipped with the right skills. Be ready for it, and once you have an opportunity, just grab it.
Okay. How about you guys? Sir?
I think, well, that I 100% wholeheartedly agree. But I think I'm going to take a controversial one. I would say get a really good lobbyist. I would say get a really good union leader. Look at the New York City
do agree
nurses
with that.
strike, right? One of their goals is to not have AI replace them, right? If you looked at CES and you looked at some of those robots, they were struggling, right? They couldn't fold a sheet, and I know I can fold a sheet really quickly, right?
Yeah.
I think robotics will get there, but I think also, in looking at like European countries, I think that certain jobs, right, certain union jobs, certain laborer jobs, that is one way I think for people in their job, like with the nurses strike, is a really good way to see how is that going to, the outcome of them being able to be paid a wage, right? They believe it's living and fair, as well as not how AI is going to affect nursing moving forward, right? And replacing laborers and nurses. So I think that's one way that you can do it, but I definitely think learning and playing with it and using things beyond just ChatGPT, I think that's really helpful. But
Well,
I would take a opposite opinion on the unions, because I always believe that the world is unfair, and it being unfair actually creates more advancement and a lot more opportunities for people to succeed, to build new technologies and improve our lives. I think I totally agree that everyone should start learning as soon as possible.
yeah.
Because you can integrate AI in your daily life, no matter what it is, emails and or some more complex, I don't know, product development, whatever it is. You can start incorporating it right now, saving a lot of time. I also think we're approaching an era where information overload is so crazy that it's so difficult for humans to stay up to date with all the news, with things that are happening, learn new skills, and AI is there to help us solve this issue. I think we're also moving to a new era of the internet. How we're communicating with internet right now is essentially help me find this information and learn how I can do it myself. But we're shifting towards an internet where we're going to be asking agents to do it for us. So it saves us time. We're still performing a lot of tasks, but we're saving a lot of time on unnecessary things. It's like in the old times, we would send a letter, right, that was replaced by an email that saved so much time to humans. And it's similar with any new technology. It just improves our lives and opens us to more opportunities and newer things that we can focus on. Even like I know a lot of friends are that before we're doing corporate jobs and they never had an opportunity to prototype their startups. And of course, vibe coding is not perfect yet. We have a lot of cybersecurity risks. It is improving, but it gives this creative opportunity to people to actually test out their ideas. I want to create a wellness app. Now you can. You can actually see how it's going to look like and see if you actually want to focus on it or not. So get there, start learning. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I completely agree with all the panelists talk about here. Basically, it's life learning about the new technology. So one thing that I don't want to mention that over the past 10,000 years of the human society history, so we have about 24 general purpose technology. Okay, including the one you know very well, STEM, electricity, internet, iPhone, and so on and forth, right? So the AI is deemed to be the 25th the general purpose technology. What I mean? It means that this is a trend. No one can change that. It's going to transform whole society in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Okay, so that being said, right, it's not about like technology to replace people. It's about the people who use technology, today's AI, to replace people who don't. So that's why we have to keep learning the AI tool so that make sure you're the one that leverage the AI, understand AI. This is one point. The other thing that I don't want to mention is sometimes some job loss is inevitable to avoid that, right? So think about like when we have STEM engine, right? Before that we have the people ride horse, right? And as a traffic tour, right, to go to a place. But when we have car, right, all disappear, right? So sometimes you cannot avoid that. But then it's other part, right? So where are the people doing now? I think they learn two new tools, right? And starting to become a driver for the car. At the meantime, like in the AI world, for AI world, there's some very interesting stuff that we have to pay attention to. For example, today when we try to train the AI model, right? Every AI company have been spend a lot of money to buy data, high quality data. Okay, so that's why Scale AI and all these emerging AI company have been grew very quickly. That being said, so if you have some very special expertise, let's say you are a lawyer, let's say you are a doctor, let's say you are some professional psychologist that understand something very well, you may be able to use your expertise to provide a very high quality data that is going to give you a very high pay. That probably will be the new job that you may ever imagine. Previously, no one cared about that, but now people care about that. So pay attention. I know challenging is in front of everyone, right? But the opportunity is also there. So I just want everyone to open your mind and to really follow the trend and learn that so you can pick up the opportunity when we're facing the challenge.
Well, I think with the driverless cars, right, you just talked about, a lot of that isn't AI. It's actually people in the Philippines managing it remotely. A lot of if you look at Amazon, right, a lot of the AI that Amazon uses, they're paying people $1 in Kenya at the Amazon Go. So I think, it's great that the world is going to revolutionize and people shouldn't lose their jobs, right? People should be able to use this to make their jobs better. But we have people in capitalism, let's face it, that their goal is to have no people. We have, tech CEOs that say the burden is people, right? And so I think we have to have a balance of AI, yes, for good, but there are malicious people who don't want it for good. I think for certain large organizations, right, at what point? I looked at us when I was at National Grid and we wanted to get rid of call centers, right? Right. The goal was to make sure that anybody that's on the phone, it's all AI. Well, I can tell you, we have people in Queens that speak over 260 languages, and we have people that are workers. Let me tell you, trying to automate that by AI is a nightmare, right? It's not, the technology isn't there. And I think also, I'm Southern. Siri still can't understand my accent. And how long have we had Siri, right? So I think that the idea of, right, we just should give everything to AI. I think there's also a point that if we have an elderly person, they're not going to adopt AI. We have 85-year-old people that have worked their whole life. The reality is we need to build tech that's for good, that's ethical, and also that doesn't, there are people that are going to be left behind. That there's always going to be that, right? That generation. But I think with a lot of that tech, it cannot, even with 11 labs, it has a trouble understanding people from certain dialects of certain parts of the company and of the world where they have no advantage and no reason for them to want to produce that, right? But we still have to service those people because they don't have that monetary advantage, right? And so I think that's where there is a balance of regulation and product people and tech people that want to make sure that we're serving certain populations, especially when it comes around accessibility, right? And yes, people should learn. I want people to learn as much, but we also have to think about those that aren't going to learn and those people who don't have the capacity to learn in AI and building products for that. Because AI and a lot of robots they're not there yet, but they will get there. But if there is no financial incentive, there's going to be a lot of people left behind. And what does that world, I think, look like? I think we should be thinking about that as practitioners, not just trying to get to $1 billion, but also thinking about how can we make the world a better place with AI, not just making money.
I think the vast majority of people can actually learn technology if they have a motivation. We can look at China as a great example. Tech penetration is insane. Everyone is using digital money. Everyone was adapting to WeChat. Doesn't matter how old are you.
But every country doesn't have the infrastructure of China. So I'm looking at countries.
But there was no infrastructure.
But I'm just saying there are. I understand. But there are countries like Haiti. There are countries like South Sudan, right?
And there's even more.
There are countries that have absolutely right. So I think You can say there's
Everyone has
opportunities, but there are
Everyone has
places where
access to information. Everyone is smart enough.
everyone
to learn
doesn't
into
have
how
access
information-
to information.
They actually do. Like if we even look at the smartphone penetration around the world, you will be really surprised at how many people
There are
have access to.
I'm not
very,
going to
very
argue
basic
with you
technologies.
about how many people don't have running water or electricity or smartphones in the world. That's just a fact. I think that's a beautiful perspective that we want to get to that point, but there are people who don't have electricity or smartphones. There are people that are being murdered daily by factions, right? I don't think that AI is going to solve that. I think it would be a beautiful world where AI can solve it, but every place is at a very different place of starting, right?
Yeah, I agree on that completely, and I think
Alright.
technology can improve that.
Thank you. I think this is a very controversial topic. I
Yeah.
know it is.
I mean,
The
just-
nature of that it is.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with
Yeah.
all your, especially for your inputs. Some
Yeah.
that are very inspiring, like being the data feeder for AI. So I'll make money out of AI. You're gonna replace me. I'm gonna make money out of you.
Yeah,
that's
I
smart.
mean, yeah.
That's smart, right?
Yeah.
That's smart. And
Yeah.
I love your concept of like stay on top of that. I like that
Yeah.
mindset. I know that's something that people that needs to set up. I also agree with you. Like there are a lot of old people who are simply cannot do that. Where
Yeah.
some people just don't like AI. Don't
Right.
replace me, okay? Don't replace me. I want to leave on what I'm having now. I know this is, and I also agree with that as a general trend. I know there will be people falling behind. There will be people still oppose this, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know who adopts that faster probably get richer.
Absolutely.
Get close to success. I don't know. This is a very interesting topic. But now I want to leave this one to the audience for whatever question you got. Well, I see there's a lot of questions already. So how about okay, and you guys can give a as concise answer as much as possible, right? Because there were too many. It seems there are many questions. So let's start from lady. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I want to know what do you think about the US and the China AI industry can learn from each other?
My money's on China.
Interesting.
That's a question specifically to
I think I want to ask Dr. Wu.
Yeah.
Dr. Wu.
So clearly, right? So U.S. and China are leading in this AI competition.
Yeah.
Compared to the rest of the world, that's for sure. And in terms like fundamental innovation capability, U.S. is stronger for sure, and we all see that. But on the other hand, right, we can see the AI center in China is also very strong to catch up. So the gap is only about 6 months away. It's not that far away. Okay, so that's why that you see a lot of like right now the closed model, right, like OpenAI, like Anthropic and Google, right. So very strong as an infrastructure, but that's for the open one, for the closed one. But if you look at the open source community,
Yeah.
almost like every is dominated by Chinese models, right? That's released by the Chinese company. I think essentially, right, so this world will need a lot of different models. Okay, so for some model, right, you need a very specific model to do a work that is very complicated, right? So that's essentially, I think this closed model are very strong. But the open model side, right, so a lot of work, you don't really need the most advanced model. Right, it's a simple problem. You need AI help, right, to provide this automation. You can use like an open source small model, right, to help you deploy that with a very low cost, so that your company are able to afford that. At the meantime, you can still enjoy the benefit of the AI. So I would say that in long term run, I would say that you will see a lot of a model, right? We talk about model across the country, but the majority of model essentially is owned by either Chinese company, American company, or China company. Long term run, I think it could be coexist. I don't think that so they are going to like to see that one side that is like completely dominant in every aspect. I think that's pretty hard. But on the other hand, right, so it's very funny, right? So now if you look at all the top AI scientists, right?
Yeah.
So you will recognize. So even today in US, whatever is OpenAI or Anthropic or Google or Meta, right? So a lot of them actually it is Chinese. Okay, who will come here, learn, start here, and then become a citizen here, and then contribute, right?
Yeah.
And we also see a lot of people who grew up in China, right? Go to the best university in China, Tsinghua, Peking University, and all this, and then they grow up and become a fundamental backstone for the AI science there. So of course, right, it's a joke. Okay, so it's like this competition between like US AI and American AI is about like the Chinese in US competing with the people, the Chinese in China. But it's a joke, right? So, but it's a reflect the reality right now. So I think like to us, right? So who live in US and what we care about is about like for our business, what's the best decision that I should choose, so that I can leverage the advantage of AI. At the meantime, so I make sure our company really to use that to benefit our client. I think that's the fundamental philosophy that so we should apply.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So who has the next? Oh. Who else have any question? Okay, let's just see how many. Okay, there are too many. Okay, so you want to give a question?
Thank you for the inputs, inputs for the panelists. My name is Jason. We are e-commerce company that have been in business for 20 years. And then I also have a question for Teddy. Since you're working for JD.com, Pinterest, and then my question is since AI agent, new AI agent, especially Cloud Boat, what do you think the further picture for the whole e-commerce? What are they going to change for the whole picture of the e-commerce? And especially on all the aspect of traffic, supply chain, distribution, or the specific aspect of the e-commerce as well. So whole picture and the specific ones.
Yeah, if you are a business owner, right, you probably have better idea than me. But my I just come from like perspective of the technology itself. Yeah, so I think right now it's in a very interesting moment. We are not even talking about e-commerce. We are talking about the whole application layer, the SaaS company. Right. So when Anthropic, last week, I think this week, right? Yeah, so announced this news about the Anthropic co-worker, a lot plug-in, right? Legal plug-in and finance plug-in, all this stuff, right? You see the whole market, right, react to that, right? The stock that go down, 20%, right? A lot. Why? Because that means that so if people can use AI chart to directly do the work, there's no reason for people to go to a particular application anymore. The traffic is gone. It's just inside chart now. User can do the work. I think that's essentially what basically eating the whole software world that we built in the last 40 years, 50 years. That's definitely something like it is changing now. That's why the whole market reacts to that. So on the other hand, right, so that also requires that AI chart company have been integrated with many different tools. So you are able to do that. So if I am an AI company have that tool, I may really reconsider how to do this profit sharing now. Right? If I integrate with you, and then that means that my previous client don't go to my product anymore, then how am I going to make money? So that's a portion that so I feel like is very interesting. Everyone has to think about that. So that portion is going to say the traffic direction and portal entry may change a lot in the future. So that portion will definitely affect not only e-commerce, almost every industry. So we all have to pay attention to. But on the other hand, right, so for this open cloud and stuff, so I have a concern about that. Many people, when they install that, right, I know many people, if you ever tech savvy, you say, oh, right, so good, I have some AI agent can help me do all the work. I don't have to do the work anymore, right? Let's buy Apple Mini, right? And then to install that, and then let's Apple Mini to do that. But we have to understand, that also means that you have been released all the admin permission of your account. to the AI agent. What that means? Give you a very simple example. If you release, for example, let's say your Gmail account. Okay, that's your working account. Then AI can easily to log in and use its Gmail account to retrieve the password. It can automatically change the password, then you even cannot log in anymore. This is just one simple example that many people don't realize that how dangerous that essentially you become an AI agent host, create a big hole for the whole society. And that's why I mentioned at the very beginning, right? So right now have some like the AI agent community that will validate are you human. If you're human, you're allowed participants in that discussion. That is, to me, is also a big red flag. So regulation right now came out late. I feel so regulations will come out quickly to regulate this, because the more that kind of AI, if you go to like kind of like social media right now, a lot of social media posts is not posted by human anymore. It's an AI bot.
Yeah.
They're talking to each other, right? So my friends, try to test this, right? And then they put a panelist talk about the future of the human and AI. And the panelists have 3 panelists. So first one, ChatGPT, second one, Cloud, third one, Gemini. And they have been talking for about 8 hours. The conclusion is that, so it's pretty sad ending. So if we do it this way.
I do have one thing to say because I've spent a lot of time building omni-channel. I think the biggest thing is realizing which chatbot, ChatGPT, is now going to be doing advertisement. So people are no longer going to be at the top of the funnel. They're going to say, hey, I want to go on a vacation, or I want to buy pearl earrings. It's going to be the best. And now it could be your site, it could be someone else. So now the ads that are coming, it's going to be around monetizing those ads within ChatGPT. We know that ChatGPT is the largest of people using it. It's kind of replacing Google. So I think that's going to be changing, as well as around understanding who your customer is, buying a great deal of customer data, getting 360, and being able to use applications to be able to personalize on the fly, to be able to create personalized advertisements to them if you're not going to be able to purchase ads, so they can come as that top search within that ChatGPT. I think that's kind of the new thing. And if you look at the ads that just dropped about maybe a day or 2 ago from Claude, of how who's going to be able to say who's ad free and who's not. So I think that's going to change e-commerce. That's going to change a lot around people being able to buy ads within the search engine when people are just using it like a glorified Google, the average consumer. So I think that's going to change it quite a bit. It's purchasing ads, as well as your personalization of pushing out information and marketing to them.
Cool. Let's give other questions some opportunities. Let's finish it on this roundtable, and I'll ask you people on the back. Sorry about that. So, you have any question? Okay, let's go.
Yeah, I have a question about regulation, more predictions, because when I think about global economies, different countries can regulate things differently. AIs are going to be developed in different places at different rates, and people are going to seek the best technology that exists no matter what. So I'm just thinking, like, you can try to regulate it in one place. Regulators are going to regulate, it's what they do. So I'd like to hear predictions of what you think those regulations might actually look like in a global competitive landscape.
I would say, especially in this political environment where different countries are not really getting along with each other, typically you would have all of these governments come together, form a consortium, and have industry standards across, the entire globe, because you have companies with branches in different countries and different continents. So you want to have regulations at a global level. In this environment, though, nobody really is bothered about that because they have their own problems. Each country is becoming more sort of nationalistic, so regulations are more focused at the country level rather than at the global level. So it'd be very interesting to see, what happens at the global level, because a company can be compliant in one country but not in Europe, for instance. And if they get sued and they get, and this is actually happening a lot, right? Europe is suing Google and Microsoft and all these companies for billions of dollars, and they really can't do anything. So It'll be really interesting to see how things play out. Everything's up in the air at the moment, so
I think data privacy is going to be the big thing. It's going to be hard around the AI and like saying this app or versus this. I think it's going to be around data management, data privacy, data protection. Those are going to be the linchpin around the regulation versus saying you can't do this, you can't do that. I fear it's going to be similar to the way social media, where it's just we're going to see how society could eventually decline. And we're seeing it in the US around with school children and their ability to read, focus, cognitive ability, because we've kind of correlated with social media, and critical thinking skills are already at an all-time low. So I think a lot of your average person is just going to pawn that off. But I think with regulations, listen, governments last. They come, they go, rules are going to be made, rules are going to be unmade. I think a lot of it at the consumer level is going to be around protection of data, money, and using those things. And the regulators are going to have to catch up. So until those regulators catch up, and a lot of them are much older, not a lot of young folks are getting into it. I think in the United States, it's kind of up to grabs. It's going to be at a lot of state to state level. We're going to see a lot of those regulations, and then it goes to the Supreme Court of a lot of that information, and then you're going to have to like figure out what's best for consumers and what's best for your business. But a lot of it's going to be around privacy, around your data.
but it's still it's certain, or at least there's a certain level of certainty at the country level, right? Like,
Yeah.
Regulations are made by politicians, lobbying by companies or people. All of these people can agree to it at the country level. But what happens when these countries don't talk to each other or don't agree on rules that are supposed to be set? Then, what do you do? Like,
I think your concern is very valid. I think there are two levels of the concern. The first level of concern is like, just as I said, right? So the regulation is made by the politicians, and most of them they are not tech savvy.
No.
Right. So they are very insensitive about the technology advancement, especially when evolving so quickly. So that's created a lot of concern, especially this open cloud stuff that right now just came out. I'm very concerned about that part. To be honest, I'm an AI scientist. I feel that so if that part is lose control, then we'll have a lot of AI bots, malicious AI bots.
Oh yeah.
In the internet, that's going to hacking everyone's account. That will even lose control. Human will even lose control of that. That's even worse. That's one thing that I feel like it's need a lot of attention. The second part, to go back to your point, right? So because it's kind of like the geopolitical so this conflict, one country when they make a regulation, they will look at the other country, and of course, all the tech companies they don't want to be regulated too much, right? So if you make a very strict regulation on something and say, oh, if you make this regulation, other country will win because they don't have that strong regulation, I think that will make the whole thing even worse. So, generally speaking, I feel like a lot of things that how to be really think about the regulation, and in terms of that, it's about like the whole human society future. It's not about individual person.
it's
Right.
existential almost.
Exactly right.
But it'll be
Yeah.
an extension of the country, right? I think.
It's a whole human mind.
Yeah. Because
Right.
China is only going to do things
Yeah.
that are going to protect China, and
Yeah.
it's the government fight, right?
So I think that my I was just from my options on that, right? So I think it's going to be eventually being stably on the moral side. So first of all, we still need to tell people, just like you can still carry a gun to kill people, right? But don't let's only say people do that. But that's not we don't do that. We know the power of that weapon. Just like AI. We know we can use that to do all things, but you have to morally, stably let the young people, let the young generation, or like this generation like we are, know what AI can do and we should not do. That's the very fundamental level, right? And then get to the industrial standard. There will be some technical detail to providing, okay, you cannot compromise users' email, users' account, users' payment methods, this kind of thing, right? And then then there will be some flexibility per country, right? And then So that's the very highest level. They will be constrained by the top two, well, by the bottom two, and then there will be the country level to say, okay, in this country we can use AI to do this, but in that country this is legal, but in that country it's illegal. Then they will be having, just like what we're doing of trades right now, and then nowadays trading some things will be legal here, but not in a different country. Just like that. That's my. I don't know if you guys agree on that. So but that.
I think actually Sarah mentioned a good point about data privacy and personal responsibility. I think that would be really, really important because we've seen so many cases when governments try to create a framework to protect personal data, and companies still would violate it because sometimes it's cheaper for you to pay settlements, access this data, use it for your business advantage than just follow regulation. And we will see a lot of examples like this. We will also see some countries trying to tighten their regulations on AI, but that will also create AI heavens, where countries that don't have enough economic power and advantage, they will be welcoming a lot more AI companies to move there, relocate, and essentially build businesses that are not under scrutiny of a lot of regulators. So I also think that a lot of cases will be coming, a lot of regulations will be coming after we will see an actual cases happening on the cybersecurity, on the data violation, on any other things that involve our AI development.
I think also the social issue, right? We are noticing with kids, AI is their best friend, right? They have very low social skills. We're noticing the lack of human-to-human contact. And as I said, some people have a lot of antisocial behavior. They have very poor mental health. I think there might even be a regulation around people think that AI is their therapy, right? And they're doing what AI wants. And we know that you can trick it, right? It wants to be your friend. It's already pre-prompted. So I think it's going to be very important for schools, which are usually the last, to really teach kids and maybe have some type of instruction around understanding what these, like ChatGPT, who wants to be your friend, that you can trick it into doing these things, versus an agnostic kind of view of why. That's why I like Kimmy, because it's very much very black and white and not trying to be my friend.
Okay.
But I think you're going to start seeing some social decline with it.
Certainly do. Well, I'm not sure if you're okay with this answer, but I
some
feel like.
people raise hand in the back. Yeah.
Well, these two gentlemen, you guys have the same question, or you guys have different? You two, the coach. Well, yeah, I'll let you go first.
Okay, James Mazel was we do clinical medical documentation. We put humans in the loop. We learned the lesson with speech. We made speech recognition language models. There are 62 ways to say no.
Yeah.
And my wife knew all of them, but we never get to 100%. Was the lesson that we learned with speech recognition. And we needed a lot of data. Was the hard thing to get, pure data, and that was the hard thing to make the language models from. So we're working in this field. The whole world needs our product, and we have a lot of opportunities. I'd like to have a discussion about decisions about scaling. How you decide how many markets you go after, how much money you raise, and how fast you can do that. What are the limiting steps?
Well, on the capital side, what stage are you at right now on the tech development? Are you ready to?
Oh, we have clients.
You have already clients.
Proofing publications.
And have you raised before?
No.
So it's going to be your first raise?
Yeah.
And you're ready to generate revenue?
Yes.
So like the best benchmark when you already generate revenue, it's obviously really good, and it would be an amazing way to use this to secure more strategic partners. I think what is the most important right now is to identify who the strategic investors are, who would benefit your not only during this current stage of a company, but investors who can bring you to the next rounds. It would be great to do a research. Obviously, connecting with investors in person is absolutely crucial. You can also look at our your current network, figure out if there's anyone, maybe other companies that already deployed capital from investors you would like to connect with and ask them for introduction. I think also developing, continue onboarding new clients, that would be really important. In terms of, going after new clients. Sorry, I had a long day today. So I think it's very hard for me to tell you exactly because I don't see the numbers and where you are currently at. I don't know your team and where the skill set is in terms of you asking which markets to go after. But obviously, markets where you have experience and expertise, and that's not only you, but also a team you're hiring. I don't know if that's answering the question. I'm happy to continue.
You can search your
I would like
Supermom,
to
apply for
look at it.
Supermom accelerator program.
I would be happy to chat more. I would love to actually have a look because you guys already have revenue, so it would be very case by case.
Well, some of our, so there's this whole group that says AI is good enough. And it's not. The doctors have to spend an average of 2 extra minutes reviewing and correcting errors, hallucinations. And
That's a
I
low
believe-
time to tweak.
Right? And
That's actually low. That's a low time to
Right.
tweak.
Right, it's 5 minutes for a lot of them. So we're appealing to physicians that see 40 patients a day and they want to see 50 or 60, and that saves 80 minutes a day for them, and their earning power is up to $30 a minute. So the ROI is very large for the application. We put humans in loop, we designed it for that. These companies that just have AI, which we have as good as them, some of them have raised $800 million. And with very little revenue, they were earlier than us. So I don't understand why they needed so much money, why they keep raising it. Is there?
Well, sometimes it's a game. It's a game of valuation too. Because how
Valuation.
investors make money when, for example, let's say you start at the seed stage, you're raising at the 10 million mark.
Right.
For venture capital investors to make money, they need to see the growth on the valuation. And they want to see you reaching a point of either acquisition through M&A or IPOs that is not happening as often as M&As. So they want to see that progress on your journey. That's why a lot of companies are raising raising more and more every single round. I also saw cases when companies are raising more than they actually need, and that would hurt them long term. So you can see it, your competitors right now that are raising at a way higher valuation, raising more money, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be more successful than you. Because if they're not delivering on their revenue and multipliers, so at the seed stage, no one really knows what valuation is. It's very subjective because there's not enough information or product market fit. But Series A, Series B, that's when you have a product market fit and actual data. And if your raised are too high, investors are already expecting that you're going to double, triple, and sometimes go even higher on your valuation. And that also requires certain growth on your clients, on your revenue, depending on the business model. So they want to see the growth of those metrics. And if companies are not able to deliver, they can face staying as a down round.